Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Yet Stand Inc. Thrive, Flourish, and Prosper Survivor Conversations session. Today, we're speaking with Sarita Wright. She is a licensed professional counselor in Virginia, Georgia, and DC. She provides couples counseling and individual counseling to adults and teenagers. She helps people work through anxiety, depression, substance abuse issues, work, life, and life stressors, transitions, and medical challenges. But she specializes in relational issues, trauma, and grief and loss. So thank you, Sarita, for joining tonight. And
Thank you for
you're the first interview of this kind. I've been doing the interviews and I've been kind of primarily interviewing sexual assault survivors, but I thought it would be good to pull in people who, work with either sexual assault survivors, trauma survivors. So I thought that would be a good take, to get also on this issue. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in if you don't mind.
sure.
So first, I wanted to ask you because it says that you are a licensed professional coach and counselor, um, and so how does a person determine whether they should work with a life coach or a counselor?
That's an excellent question, Elaine. Um, how a person will determine is if they are having symptoms that are more related to mental health issues, then they would see a counselor. So if it's anything that they think might be related to a trauma experience or had a previous diagnosis or diagnosis already and think that it may be triggered or resurfacing after it was managed or under control, they will see a licensed professional counselor. But if it's related more to like life skills and kind of maintenance of some of the skills they obtained while in counseling, like wanting to work on relationship concerns, which is not a that's not a diagnosable situation. If they're just managing stress, that's not a diagnosable mental health condition. If they're trying to make friends, adjust to a new town, make a big decision. So there's more goals, and but those things could have been impacted by trauma or a mental health diagnosis. So those skills can be they can learn those skills or they can enhance those skills with a life coach or accomplish a goal with a life coach. But if they're triggered again to the point where they need more mental health help,
Mm-hmm.
then a counselor can help them. And so that's why we put the two together. We think that they go well together to maintain goals. So, so yeah.
Okay. So like coaching, I kind of see it as it's more, I want to say, more immediate, kind of like in the real time. This specific issue is what I want to address right now, whereas counseling kind of takes you kind of over, period of time, goes back, comes forward, that kind of thing. So
Yes,
that's
that's
kind of the
pretty
difference.
accurate.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Okay.
accurate. And to know that if they're using insurance, that people may not be aware of this, that most insurances will not help you with life skills, even if you feel like it's related to what you're dealing with. They won't say, "Oh, I'm trying to date again," or "I'm trying to move or start a new career, and I'm having triggers, or I'm nervous or anxious because of it." They may or
Mm,
may not determine that that is a medical necessity, is the term that they will use. So if they're
mm-hmm.
not able to say that your mental health issue or the trauma responses or symptoms are directly causing your functioning, then it could be hard to justify some of the skills or services you think you may need or you may legitimately need with insurance. So that's another way that
Mm,
life coaching will come into place because they won't just deal with skills building, even if it's related to some of the trauma or mental health issues that they're having. So that could be.
right. Right. Okay. Yeah, that is good to know. Yeah. So do you counsel sexual victims?
I do, and I have, yes.
Okay, okay. And do you find like similarities amongst kind of some of the symptoms that they kind of struggle with day to day?
Yes, yes, and it will depend. It would definitely vary on when that incident occurred and how
Mm.
long that incident occurred or took place, so far as what the symptoms you would tend to see or how intense those symptoms will show up. But yeah, some of those things we commonly see is definitely issues in relationships, like with intimacy or either a relationship avoidant or um, maybe overly looking for attention, love.
Mhm.
So it can go either way there. Sometimes you'll see just physical symptoms. Sometimes they have headaches or issues with sleeping or eating. That's
Mm.
another one I see a lot is maybe
Mhm.
some body image issues, like whether
Mm.
it's just like self-esteem or not liking the way they look or wanting to change the way they look or not attract
Mhm.
attention. A
Yeah.
lot of self-blame, trust issues,
Yeah.
things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah. And do you, when it comes to the sexual assault, people, do you see across the board, men, women, children? Is it teens or kind of
Yes,
across the board?
across the board with yeah, all those populations, those people you mentioned. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so do you think that people always realize that they are responding out of trauma? Like some of
Mm,
the things that you mentioned with maybe the relationship issues or how they look and all. Do you see that they see a correlation, or is that sort of something that has to kind of be brought forward for them?
that's a really good question. I would say that not always, not always.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they would, depending on the type of support system they had or how well they processed the incident after it happened,
Mm-hmm.
they can show up in different ways. And so they're not always aware. And then depending on, like I said, their support systems, they can be in relationships or around people who are telling them that it's just them or get over it or that happened a long time ago or, I'm not doing anything to you. So that can also impact like their awareness or their ability to make that connection between what happened to them and how it's showing up in their today. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great question. They don't always realize it.
I don't know. Yeah. And is any how should I say? Do you find it any more complicated? Let's say if it's a male versus if it's a woman, if it's a child, do those kinds of things kind of complicate things?
Uh, let's see. So that's a good question. I believe perhaps it can be I don't know if complicated is the word. I guess maybe more nuanced if it's a child, especially because
Mm-hmm.
other people involved in their care, of course.
Yeah.
With children, you want to be very careful. I mean, with everyone, of course, about not leading though a child, letting them experience it in their right time. So far as like the retelling of the story, who they trust, who you allow to be in their support system or network. Um, yeah, it can be difficult, and also especially for men, the
Mm-hmm.
stereotypical response. Like a lot of men, as you know, are not as do not step up as quickly or readily for many different reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
There could be a lot of barriers or things at play that can make it more um, challenging to really reach the person and help them to process what's going on and even make all the connections because even over time some of the habits or protective factors or behaviors that they picked up over time, like which are sometimes defensive and self-protective measures. It's
Mm.
hard to release those things also to say that, okay, you're in a safe space now, or you have people around you who care about you, love you. But then those behaviors sometimes that they picked up can be difficult to say, yeah, at that time you needed to protect yourself. But at this time, you can release that um, in varying degrees over time. So
Yeah.
pretty tricky as well.
Right, for sure. And I see you also offer workshops. What kind of workshops do you offer?
The workshops are, I like those to be for anybody, like just for the general public, or it could be
Okay.
for people that I'm actually working with. I'll let them know about some of the workshops. And the ones I'm offering at this time are self care. Um, and I can talk about any of them if you have any questions. But there, we do a self care one. We do intentional journaling with a add on of affirmations, like building affirmations. And then we also have premarital and marital workshops and enrichment seminars. And then we have anger management and substance abuse education courses that can be approved by the court for people who've been court ordered to take anger management and substance abuse. So those are the workshops that we have at
Mm-hmm.
a particular moment. But we're also able to curate any particular topic that a person may need, or organization, a church, a nonprofit, a school or university. We've been getting a lot of requests for that because a lot of the colleges are overwhelmed with the number and amount of students that they are seeing in their college counseling offices.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to also do workshops and actually go on site and meet the need of what they're looking for, or what that organization may be looking for their audience.
Right. Okay. Um, so when it comes to counseling and coaching, would you say that there are maybe different results that you hope your clients will come away with, or is it kind of the same whether they're in the coaching status or um, they're in the therapy part of things?
Hmm.
What's your hope for your for your clients
Yeah,
to take away?
that's interesting. I don't know if it's as different
Mm-hmm.
um, between coaching and counseling when I work with people. Would say just to help you build a life you desire. There's obviously something that you want to tweak in your life. You know, there's something that a goal you want to reach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's behaviors you want to change. You want to have a better personal life, career, relationships. You want to manage your mood better. So, of course, it's always to meet that person where they are, um, discover what it is that what the challenges are, help them to meet those challenges so that they can live the life that they desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that regard, I don't think it's too different when I work with people. Is to help them to function better, be more
Right.
satisfied with their life.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah. So would you say, or could you maybe give, I'll say maybe two or three tips, maybe someone who is, dealing with trauma, um, anything maybe that they could kind of do on their own, do at home, maybe when they find themselves in a state, maybe where they're in a place where they're maybe triggered, things like that.
Yeah, that's a another great question. It's a great question. Wow. I guess I have to answer that kind of a little indirectly, but it will answer the question.
Okay.
As far as when people come to me with trauma, like one of the main things, well, there's many main things that I ask, but the one of the things I want to find out is just, their support system. You know,
Hmm.
I want to find out who they already have in their lives, because if they make it to me, then someone referred them. They found out they got to some type of point where they realized that I need some help or assistance with it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Then to know who are the people, what are the resources you already have, and if they don't have those things, I want to start linking them with them or putting the idea in their head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want them to only have me as their person because I'm a counselor. I'm usually only available during that session, which is about
Right.
an hour. After that hour, I don't I'm available, of course. You know, I'll be available if, as needed, but I want them to start building their support system. And I know that takes time because trust is one of the issues that they have. So, but I want them to start thinking about who do I already have? What are some of my resources already? What are some of my strengths? And so the first thing I would do is try to see who else do you have. So, family, trusted family members and friends. I will look at organizations such as your own, other nonprofits, groups,
Mm-hmm.
groups that they may have, and whether those groups are online or virtual. I will link them to the hotlines, right? The
Mm-hmm.
national hotline
Mm-hmm.
for sexual assault, the hotlines too for suicide prevention. Um, there's also a thing called warm lines, which is pretty cool. I think
Okay.
it's not a hotline. Hotlines sometimes people can be turned off by them, which hopefully they aren't, but they
Mm-hmm.
might minimize their situation and think that, well, I'm not in crisis, or it's not that serious, or I just, I'm just having a bad day, but it doesn't
Mm.
the level of a crisis. Hopefully they will still call the hotline, because the
Mhm.
hotline, um, people are know how to still work with them. But if not, there's a warm line, and
Okay.
that's www.warmline.org, and that is also to help you work through a trying time, just kind of talk through its difficult situation. Just if you're, having a hard time using any of the skills you learned or anything, and it's just not working.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty good. That line is also peer led, so it's usually by people who have maybe struggled with something themselves. They've been
Okay.
trained, is supervised
Mhm.
by, authority people, professionals, and so that's a good one too. So I will
Mhm.
do that. I will also let them know that they can text. So there's, people who maybe they don't want to talk to anyone, or maybe they're not able to. They're crying. They don't want to, let the person hear the crying in their voice, or
Mhm.
what have you. So then you can text also, and I believe it's you would text home, HOME, to 741-741. I believe it is. And so that's one of the things I let them know. So they have different avenues.
Okay.
People like to connect and reach out to people in different ways.
Mhm. Mhm.
I want them to have
Okay.
all the different types. Like some people like to text, they like to call, talk to someone, they like to go and
Mhm.
they like a group format, they like individual, they have family. And I like them to also start thinking about that. What's the best way I receive help, and that I engage best and I feel most comfortable. So research,
Right. Yeah.
um, and yeah.
Yeah. So support and resources are kind of the, yeah, we
That's
want to
the
make
first
sure
step.
make sure that those are covered. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
strategies. So
Mhm.
start to give them some basic strategies. So far as like becoming like anxious or emotionally triggered, um,
Mhm.
deep breathing. And I try to tell people, like, it's not a fluke. It's really
Yeah.
helpful. And
Yeah.
so I try to get people sold on the idea, because people are thinking, I'm dealing with all this in my life, and you want me to deep breathe? You want me
Yeah.
to do deep breathing? That's not going to help with anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's the go to. That's the
Yeah.
go to. Because
Yeah.
what we don't realize is that, and I teach this in the self care class, but what we don't realize is a lot of times we're holding that tension in our bodies.
Mhm.
Um, we're also holding our breath at times, so we may even find ourselves hyperventilating, breathing fast.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so the best thing you can do is just stop and breathe. You become
Mhm.
you also start to become in tune with your body. You start to realize where you're holding that tension. You start to
Mhm.
release, get the oxygen flowing. Um,
Mhm.
so I would recommend deep breathing exercises with a focus on the exhaling part of the deep breathing. Because I know
Mhm.
all types of deep breathing we have, or breathing styles, like with
Mhm.
with Lamaze, with pregnant women. So, you know,
Yeah.
um, with swimmers, everyone is taught to breathe in a certain way.
Right.
For the people I work with, I would tell them to breathe in through your nose, just a deep enough breath to
Mhm.
take, just big enough to take the breath, but you don't want to hold it. That's not where the
Mhm.
relaxation comes. The relaxation comes from the exhaling. So I would tell them to exhale very slowly and evenly, and
Uh-huh.
then feel your body just collapse in on itself.
Mm. Mm.
Start to feel your shoulders, your back,
Yeah.
and your stomach folds in, and you just kind of like just let yourself go limp, and then you do it again, and then you
Yeah.
create rhythm. And
Mhm.
I'll tell people, if they feel comfortable and you're in a safe space, you want to also close your eyes so that you
Mhm.
eliminate any other stimulation around you, and you can
Mhm.
focus on your breathing, how it's feeling in your body, and you're just trying to get your breathing back to a calm. And then from that point you start to do that. And some people would say, well, how long should I do that? How many breaths should I take? Because sometimes we want a formula, right? And I
Yeah.
try to be in tune with your body. It's not about the number or how long it takes.
Yeah.
It's until you feel
You
relaxed.
feel. Mhm. Mhm.
Start learning to feel, start learning your body and knowing when, yeah, I think I'm okay now. I feel better. My thoughts are even, clearer and less frantic. So that is
Yeah.
my go-to. It's my go-to method, and I use it for myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I use it too, but I like the idea of really putting your body into it because I've never thought
Mm,
of like I'll do the, and then I'm just, but I
yeah.
like the idea of really like
Oh,
letting your
yeah.
body just,
Yes. Lymph.
relax into it. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, yeah, I definitely really like that. And that's what they call, is that like a grounding? They call it
Yeah, it
grounding
helps
technique or.
for anxiety. It helps for anxiety and intense emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Just to recenter, regroup back on yourself, and I think it
Yeah.
helps to be in tune. A lot of times we've lost touch of our bodies, where some people disassociate. They learn
Mhm.
remove themselves from their body
Mm. Oh, yeah.
for many reasons.
Yeah.
Legitimate. And so we're learning how to be in our bodies again, in
Mm.
our bodies. So
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I also heard, I think it was she's a doctor, and she
mm,
also said, and I don't know the part of the brain, but that there's actually a part of the brain that,
mhm.
especially when you exhale, that there's some part of the brain that it actually stimulates and gets it. Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. There's somehow whatever that part of the brain kind of connected to the emotions, and when you do that, breathe out, it stimulates that part of the brain.
Oh wow. Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
let me know if you me, because it just gives more research and more backing for why this works,
Mhm.
why it's
Yeah.
effective. To
Yeah.
try to get that buy-in from people, because I wasn't a believer at first with either. I had anxiety issues where I ended up going to the hospital some several years ago. And the doctor there, they couldn't find anything. They said, the heart chemistry, everything looks right. We don't think it's wrong. We think it's stress and anxiety. And I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
They say, yeah, you really need to get that under control. And that's when I started really digging into the self-care. um, and from the self-care, and anxiety is one of the, also you said, like, what's some of the common traits that people with sexual assault and other traumas have. It's anxiety.
Mhm.
Anxiety shows up a lot too. And so from that anxiety, I've learned from dealing with that myself to do the deep breathing. And I was not a believer myself. I was thinking, look, that's not
Mhm.
going to do anything. That's not going to do anything. But I've learned it made me a believer, and I let everyone know that's my go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I do it too. And some of the other things I do, like I'll get up and start dancing in the middle of the floor,
Yes.
just get up and I'll just start moving. I'll put some music on
Yeah.
sometimes, or
Yeah.
just different things. And I like the idea too. I don't know what they call it, where you kind of touch, sort of touch yourself to,
Yeah.
get in tune that way with your body, and keep
Mhm.
yourself in the now. Yeah, a lot of little techniques like that, and they really do work. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to apologize. I think someone's mowing the lawn or doing something outside. So I don't know
Oh,
if you can
okay.
pick up.
Oh, okay, I heard something. I thought maybe my mic was doing something, but okay, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, but
well,
yeah,
yeah, we.
that's a great one too, Elaine. Like that, being in touch, and that's true. Tapping into your five senses. So we
Mm,
know the five senses. That's how we interact with the world. That's how we take information in.
mhm,
Everything that pretty much learned, it came in, or access it came in through our five senses. We saw it, we heard it,
mhm,
we tasted it, we smelled it, we touched it. And
right,
so a lot of times we're not always in control of what we get to see, taste, touch, and hear. So we want to be intentional. So the
mhm,
times that we can control it, or we want to be intentional and mindful about, okay, what do I want to taste? What do I want to smell? Oh yeah, be careful with the taste one. Because that's what I say. I want to taste some Rocky Road ice cream. So
right,
be careful with the taste, but we just want to think about, what do I want to touch? And we can actually incorporate that into our lives and integrate it into our lives in a
mhm,
very strategic way that
mm,
helps us to also feel relaxed and
mm,
inspired and fulfilled and just at peace. We can create that environment for ourselves just by tuning into our senses and deciding what will help me to experience that.
yeah, yeah. A question that comes to mind is, what made you decide to do both, the
Hmm.
counseling, the life coaching?
Huh. Okay. Well, it's a two-part um, question answer. Well, maybe it's just a two-part answer. I don't know. But let's see. For counseling, I guess I was always a helper. I know that sounds so cliche, but I was always a helper. I was always that person too that people came to. And I know a lot of people say that, I was just that friend. I was that family member that was very helpful, great listener, willing to do and just also feel for people. I just didn't want anyone to be alone when they're dealing with things. I was just like, wow, that's tough. I wasn't afraid of it. I was like, I'll
Mm,
sit with you. What can I do to help you? What do we need to do? I'll go with you. So I didn't even know at young ages that a counselor was a career. I didn't know. I was just doing
mhm,
it naturally. So then as I got older, I had a psychology teacher in high school, and I really liked her. I started really enjoyed her class and learning about behavior and psychology behind things. She encouraged me to go to college for psychology, and that's how I
mhm,
started. And then I didn't know about the one-on-one counseling, so I actually started off working in group homes, working in hospital settings, um, working more in group settings. But then I would see in those group settings, a counselor would come and get them, and they would go off site or off the unit, and they would go talk with their counselor, and they would come back and say, "Oh, I just met with my counselor. I just met my counselor." And I was like, "What? What do they do?" And then I learned more about it, learned what it took to get the degree, went ahead and
mhm,
did it. The rest is history. So far as the coaching came about during the pandemic, actually.
mm,
Such a great need that just was waiting list so long. People are having a hard time, finding a provider. And so from there, I started thinking about coaching, like how's a way to kind of triage some of the people coming in, because some of the people coming in, not to minimize, I'm not saying that um, not saying that they weren't that their needs and their concerns were any
mhm,
lesser, because
mhm.
when you're dealing with something, it's a distress to you.
Yeah.
um, but I was thinking, how can we triage people so the people who really need the counselors can get help with the counselors? Remember, that's for mental health. A coach can't work with someone with too extensive mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking, how can we still help people? There were people dealing with adjustment issues. They were dealing with just, they're around their spouses all the time, and their, partners, and they're just like, we're getting on each other's nerves. We don't know what to do. So we try to triage some cases that can be handled by a coach, and
Uh-huh.
then the ones that truly needed extensive like mental health assistance. So that's kind
Okay.
of how I got started, just trying to meet the need.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good. I like that. Yeah, I could see how COVID, could definitely prompt something like that. How do you think people are doing coming? Well, I was going to say coming out of COVID. It's not like it's gone, but just we're not in that isolation part of it so much anymore. How do you think people are kind of coping with that transition?
Man, I think it's mixed, right? I think it's mixed. I think a lot of people are just, happy to be back out there, just running back out there, just over it all. And I think a lot of people have been impacted more long term if it's not with results of COVID directly. Like some people, I guess they're calling it long COVID, um,
Mm-hmm.
still dealing with physical symptoms
Mm-hmm.
after that. So that can be upsetting in and of itself, that I was fine, I was healthy before this, and now I have this chronic cough. Now I can't breathe and I can't play
Mm-hmm.
sports anymore because my lungs are not working like they used to, or whatever the case may be. So now there's grief and there's loss and there's
Mm.
stuff dealing with that, just adjusting to
Mm.
body's different. I'm responding.
Yeah.
So just that, and then also dealing with some of the losses. People have had a lot of losses during that time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
loss, um, and then anxiety. A lot of people just picked up a lot of anxiety, and if people were already kind of a little agoraphobic or just kind of anti people, I think
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is still there. Like they still don't want to go out. They're still nervous around people, or they've
Yeah.
got comfortable. Like some people are actually working towards being more social. So
Mm-hmm.
they regressed in some ways because
Wow.
they couldn't really practice that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel, and we know around a lot of the suicide rates went up. We know that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, depression, A lot of
Mhm.
issues. So we know that, or relationship issues too. So a
Yeah.
lot of people are still dealing with the aftermath of this.
Aftermath, yeah. So I remember seeing, oftentimes seeing, I don't know, on the news or just online, different things, and they would talk about how the, let's say, levels of, let's say, domestic violence and the, the even the sexual assaults and things like that went on the rise during COVID. Was that anything that you saw? Um,
That's a great question. Not as much, not as
mm-hmm,
much domestic violence. Maybe one or two here or there.
mm-hmm,
Um, Suicide. I did deal with
mm,
suicidal ideation, loneliness,
mm,
so a lot of depression,
mm-hmm,
domestic violence. Yeah, not so much the domestic violence, but a lot of
mm-hmm.
conflict, a lot of I don't know if I want to be with this person anymore. So a lot of
Yeah.
just I was yeah, I'm like I got to get away from this person now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, relational distress for sure. Uh,
Mhm.
Also parenting, yeah, parenting issues too, because a lot of
Yeah.
parenting just was just a lot. Now they're teachers and dealing with children who are pushing back resistance. They're over it. So a lot of parenting issues too.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I could expect.
Yeah, for sure. Um, is there any are there any, like, if someone wanted to know if they exhibited, say, symptoms
Mhm.
of, of trauma, um what could some look for, even if they're it could be a parent, looking at their child and, seeing maybe certain behaviors and not they're not sure what it is.
Mm,
Again, maybe even seeing certain behaviors in themselves, and they don't realize, kind of where it's coming from. What are
yeah,
some of the things that, that we could kind of look for?
yeah, yeah. Um, so like you mentioned, I think that's a great one right there. It's just the changes in behavior. So you have to kind of know yourself and know your child, to know, okay, their personality changes. They used to be
Mm,
outgoing. They used to be,
mm,
talkative. Now they're kind of, quiet and just
yeah,
isolated. Like, that's a sign right there. They're not themselves.
yeah.
That's one I would say, when they are interacting, they're snappy or withdrawn,
Mm,
one word. And
mm,
if that's not the norm for them, you're like, okay, what's going on? Something's going on.
yeah.
Um, Also, I would say, listen out for dreams. Like sometimes they would try to tell you in indirect ways, especially if it's children. They
Mm-hmm.
will tell you in indirect ways, through their dreams or stories or my friend or, and
Oh,
so
okay.
you want to pay attention to some of the stories that they may be telling you.
Yeah.
And also changes in sleep and appetite, sleep and and appetite. Those
Mhm.
are like the basic things we look at. Like they are, picky eaters, or they stop eating or lose their appetites, or they're overeating. Um,
Mhm.
they're not sleeping. You want to look for changes in that kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
um, there was another one that stood out. Another one I was thinking of. Oh, and acting out. So a lot of times we look at those signs of where like depression, whatever, but sometimes aggression, you know,
Mm.
stealing,
Mm.
lying, they start doing things like that. It's like they're dealing with something inside and just don't know how to deal it, don't deal with it, don't know who to tell, and sometimes
Mhm.
show up as acting out behavior. But and that's really a common way that children tend to show it, and then
Yeah.
we just administer consequences
Right.
and figure out why is this kid acting out. They say all behavior is is trying to communicate something.
Mm.
Want
Mhm.
to listen up and say, what is this acting out behavior trying to accomplish? Um,
Mm.
what does this child need, especially youth? For adults, it's very much similar to with the changes in behaviors and patterns. Um, but yeah, I would say those are the main ones.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I remember, growing up, So I experienced, sexual trauma and other kind of like verbal, physical abuse, that kind of thing.
Mhm,
And remember going through all the different things that, that you kind of named, right? The acting
mhm,
out
mhm,
and, the change in, almost personality just, flipped and went from,
mhm.
outgoing and that into, just like this, shell and all those
Mhm.
kinds of things. And um I'm just glad today that we're more aware,
Yes.
and that when we're seeing these things, because for me, of course, like you said, it was like consequences, you're getting punished and you're getting spanked and you're getting beat and you're getting, all these things,
Mhm.
where really, that's not going to do the trick.
Right.
And actually, it oftentimes ends up pushing a person further into, the acting out or the shell or the,
True.
whatever. So it's really good. I like for people to really understand that,
Yeah.
that when you're looking at these things and you're seeing these things, whether it's a child or adult, something's
Yeah.
going on, and need
Yeah.
to kind of, try to, help them get to, what's happening. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point. And I would say to be proactive and have conversations, with your child about, their experience, what's going on. Try to have regular conversations. So if something is to come, was to come up, they would be more likely to talk to you. If the
Hmm.
only time they have to talk to you or they have that time is to say something that's bad news, or they think you can't even handle it as a parent, or they, feel like
Yeah.
that they'll get in trouble,
Yeah.
they're they're not going to,
Right.
less likely to talk to
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I saw something that said that if your child can't feel comfortable talking to you about maybe the little things,
you.
never
Mhm.
mind the big things. So if
Exactly.
you're freaking out and going off over some little, something that they might have done, this kind of like kids do, when the
Mhm.
big stuff happens, they're not gonna trust you, you
For
know?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, so is there anything, like if you were to give an encouraging word to someone who, they may be in the midst of, trauma or in the midst of crisis, whatever it might be, it could be some of the things that you deal with, medical challenges, depression, relational, whatever that is. Um, is there just sort of like an encouraging word, if someone's watching that you could say to them?
Mm. Well, I'm a little wordy.
That's okay.
Like it'll be several words, but man, I would say the number one thing would be you're not alone. And I
Mm,
think a lot of times these
mm,
incidents cause people to think that I'm the only one dealing with this. I'm alone. No one else knows what I'm dealing with. And the person or the perpetrator or whatever they could have even instilled that into the person, like no one to believe you. So I would say it's the first thing is like you're not alone. Many people
mm,
unfortunately have dealt with this or something similar that's been a betrayal or violation to them, or
yeah.
just totally just didn't see it coming, or and not to feel guilty or bad.
Mm,
You know, we have take responsibility. We internalize that thing, and we feel like we caused it. We dressed a certain way. We said something we shouldn't have said. We some type of way we caused this, but no, the person did what they did because they did it. Like their actions, they actually did it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So being able to just say, I'm not the blame. I
Yeah.
didn't, cause this, and then
Yeah.
say is that it could still be a pretty picture. That used to be when I first started off in counseling. That used to be my little tagline. It can still be a pretty picture, because I
Mm,
think a lot of times we just want to, give up and just throw it away. It's damaged now. We're color
mm.
just, I'm going to throw this away. I messed it up. My daughter's like that. She's like, it's messed up now. I'm like, wait a minute. It's art. Art. You see
Yeah.
art that's out there on the wall is just slashing
Yeah.
the paint, all kinds of,
Yeah.
interesting mosaics and stuff. And
Uh-huh.
I try to get, people to say it can still be a pretty picture. Like even if you have a bad day or something, it's I mean, it's not a bad situation. It's a bad situation. It's not a bad day. It's not a bad week. It's
Mm.
ruined everything. Everything's not ruined.
I like
Um,
that.
So I'll try to get, the person to think like this is not all of your story. This is not
Mhm.
all of your life. Like, yes, it's
Mhm.
devastating, it's upsetting. Yes, it happened. But the story doesn't end here,
Yeah.
it doesn't end
Yeah.
here. And it can still be a pretty picture.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, and I think I think that's a good way to close. Unless
No,
if there's anything else that that you any other points that you want to raise, we can do that. Um,
no, I agree. I think that's a good
I think
place
that's a good
to wrap
yeah.
up.
Yeah, it can still be a pretty picture. Yeah,
Mhm.
everything is not lost. Everything's not ruined. It's not, yeah. Yeah, there's still hope.
Yes, there's still hope.
There's still
Yes,
hope.
and like your motto says, you can still flourish,
Uh-huh.
thrive. Yeah, there we go. Thrive, flourish,
Thrive,
and
flourish, and
prosper.
prosper.
Yes, it's not over.
It's not over. Yeah, I like that. All
Mhm.
right. Well, thank you so much, Sarita. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time. I'm so glad that we met, and I'm looking forward to talking to you more in the future, and maybe doing some things together. Yeah, I would look forward to that.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
look forward to it as well. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. It just felt really great, like a really nice
good,
conversation that we needed to have.
good, good. All right. Well, thank you. Have a great day,
Thank you. You
and
too.
we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.